Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. I got a really cool package in the mail all the way from Sweden, and it is, after 40-some years, ABBA's latest album, Voyage. Got it on cassette. It's got a pretty big CD collection, pretty big record collection. Wanted some new stuff to listen to on my Walkman. This record, the main cover art for it actually is this picture of a solar eclipse. I think that's what it is. Don't call me out, astronomers. I picked this alternative cover art just because I thought it had a bit more personality to it. It's the Let It Be style photos. But this is also a little weird in a way, and I'm going to get into that shortly. But just listen to this tape. Had a lot of good stuff on it, very pleasant to listen to overall, and it starts with a track called I Still Have Faith in You. This track is sung by Anna-Frid, by Frida, and you can hear the subtle difference in her voice many years down the road. You can tell that she's a bit older, though her voice is still perfectly strong. She's still a very good singer. She hasn't lost it at all. So this song sort of sounds like the Welcome Back track. You hear the little bit of difference, but it largely sounds like ABBA of old. It feels like it's singing very directly to the idea of this reunion. There was a union of heart and minds, the likes of which are rare and oh so hard to find. Do I have it in me? I believe it in there. What I like about this verse is, on the one hand, it's acknowledging the challenges of making this ABBA reunion happen, but it's also counting the blessings that ABBA happened in the first place, because the right people meeting to form a great band, that's an improbable event in itself. So, whether or not this ABBA reunion has deep, lasting effects, they're remembering the miracle that was the original formation of ABBA. And while this song begins on kind of in a way where I'm thinking, okay, I'm happy they're back, but it's nothing special, then there's this sort of magical growing in the sound, this real epicness in the middle that really makes it its case for being a classic part of the ABBA canon. Track number 2 is called When You Danced With Me. This one opens with a sort of bagpipey sound, and overall it's going for an Irish folk feel. It's kind of like the instrumental that concluded their Arrival album, if that was actually given lyrics. And yet, despite the fact that this is a very stylized song, it's, ABBA role-playing as Old Irish, you can nonetheless also hear this as a song of being about the idea of reunion. So is the outside world as you imagined? Was it worth it, severing the ties? Happy to see me, or a bit embarrassed? There's a darkness deep in your blue eyes. Track number 3 is called Little Things. This is a Christmas song about parents, or rather grandparents. I guess that makes more sense, both in terms of who the writers are, in terms of the lyric, and just appreciating the joy of seeing how much children like Christmas. So on the one hand, I'm grateful that they've written a distinct enough new Christmas song, because what really annoys me about Christmas albums is it's just the same songs again and again, and every time you think someone has a distinct Christmas song, like I thought Blue Christmas was distinctly Elvis, or Run Run Reindeers was Chuck Berry's, a few years later you realize, no, a million people have covered those too. Like, everything at Christmas is just overdone, and I get it, people feel nostalgic, they want what's familiar, but it just makes it very hard for me to enjoy Christmas music. And so Little Things, I think, was a valid effort from Benny and Bjorn to create something new and beautiful for the canon, but, it still sounds very much like your standard sentimental Christmas fare. So I believe they released 2 singles from this record. So I Still Have Faith in You was one, and then track number 4, Don't Shut Me Down, is another. This one you don't quite see coming because it's a very smooth transition from the Christmas song, from Little Things. It keeps that rich strings underlying it, but then there's a little piano glissando whoosh, that takes you into this techno disco verse, and then there's a really cool howling string sound. In short, Don't Shut Me Down has really cool, poppy orchestral instrumentation. Quite possibly the strongest track on this record. But there's also a reference to the singers being reloaded. And that gets me to what I find a bit unsettling about this cover art. So look here. This is not the ABBA members in their 70s. And apparently they're having these reunion concerts, but they're all by hologram. And, there could be various reasons for that. To me, it seems kind of weird that we can't see ABBA as they are now, I guess because I like so many musicians who were active in the 60s and 70s, and they've performed all these years, and they look old, and they own it, and there's nothing wrong with it. So don't know exactly what's going on here, but it's kind of like we're not getting the full ABBA comeback. They're clearly coming back in the studio, but the live version we see is just the robotic one. And again, there could be all kinds of personal reasons for that. Not judging them as individuals. It's just I'm acknowledging, for me, it's a bit unsettling. Track number 5 is called Just a Notion. It begins with a boogie-woogie piano. I'd earlier compared this, and with the title, Voyage, it makes sense, to their Arrival album. If When You Danced With Me was a revisiting of the song Revival, perhaps Just a Notion is a revisiting of Why Did It Have to Be Me? It's the sort of upbeat, poppy song. The one thing is they don't seem to be able to do any song in this album without a lot of thick underneath orchestration. And for the most part, that's part of the ABBA sound, and I appreciate it. But I think the groove of this one would have landed a little stronger if they had turned down that orchestration and just allowed this to be the fun, light song on the album. Side 2 begins with track number 6, I Can Be That Woman. And this one, it's a really drastic change of pace. ABBA, back when they were in their original run, they wrote about a bunch of songs that people saw as really being about the divorces between the two main parties. The Winner Takes It All and When All Is Said and Done. And I Can Be That Woman kind of channels that, but some of the lyrics are far more on the nose. They feel far more specific to a real situation. And who knows if it's either of the ABBA couples or just, connected through their shared history of divorce and heartbreak. But there's references throughout this song to a dog named Tammy and how the dog is moving through the space as the couple are feeling uncomfortable together, and the dog both is and isn't aware of that. So I think it's a very interesting piece of songwriting in that regard. It's trying to really capture the atmosphere of a marriage falling apart. At times the lyrics are on the nose in a way where I feel like they're not choosing the most melodic words. There's a line about being drunk that I didn't think rolled off the tongue that well, and I think it's because it's trying to capture a kind of realness and prioritizing realness over beautiful lyrics, but certainly a very poignant, very interesting track. And that's followed by another thematically similar one, Keep an Eye on Dan. This one starts with an intense sound with booming piano keys and the occasional speedy string riff. And once you take the time to look at the lyrics, you realize it's about a post-divorce situation, Dan being a child and the singer being the parent who does not have custody of Dan. The opening lyrics go, I know that this shouldn't be a traumatic event, but it is, and I feel so bad. So my reading of that is just because you don't have legal custody of a child, the legal power to make decision-making, doesn't mean you can't largely still be an equal present parent in their life. If the parents didn't fall out for any reason that was too dark, they probably can eventually work out their differences and largely both be a presence in their child's life. So it's as if the singer is recognizing that a divorce doesn't necessarily have to be that bad of a divorce. It can be a quote-unquote happy divorce. I believe it was Agneta who said, but there are no happy divorces. It still feels horrible and traumatic inside, even if this is a divorce where the couple can come back together in the end and sing together, and who knows, maybe have both mutually good relationships with their children. I don't know that many details of the ABBA biography, but that's the kind of sense I get from this one. Track number 8 is called Bumblebee, and it's literally a protest song about bumblebees being an endangered species due to modern agricultural techniques. I like the idea of this one. This is one, again, where I wish they tried for a sparser sound, where they tried, just for acoustic guitar, like more standard protest fare, rather than this big militaristic underlying orchestration. This might also be a problem, again, of the fact that the people who do most of the singing in ABBA aren't the people who do the songwriting in ABBA, so perhaps this was an idea that really meant something to Benny and Bjorn, and thus I wish one of them would have sung it, or I wish Agneta or Anna Fried, wrote the song themselves. But I like the idea of this track, and it's fine. It's just, it's not as special as I want it to be. Track number 9 is No Doubt About It, and this is another on-the-nose tragic relationship song. He says with forbearance in his eyes, most couples we know are able to compromise. He's too good for me. That's one thing I know for sure. If that's true, why do I let it upset me? There I go, stomping my feet like a child. But he is a good man. He tries to understand why I freak out. He worries, and I know it's an honest reaction. So this is one, again, where I wonder what's the story behind it, how involved the singers were in the songwriting process. I mean, obviously it's a bit weird for women to be singing a song that men wrote about the woman being more at fault than the man. But again, not judging. There could be all kinds of stories to where this song came from. And again, it's a very affecting musical song. It tries to sound a bit different than the others by starting with a real raucous guitar, but there's clearly some inspiration behind it, and I'm curious what that inspiration is. The final track to the album is Ode to Freedom. The singing one takes on a real choral sound. You don't hear much individuality in the singer's voice. And this one sounds more classical, and it is, because apparently it was quoting a piece from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake Ballet. Thematically, this one could be very different from the rest, or could it not be at all. It speaks of an ode to freedom, and again, when I think of odes, I just think of old-time classical music, like your song, Ode to Joy. And I guess it could be freedom from past romantic pain from a bad relationship, but it could be they're breaking from all that to try and make a sort of vague, catch-all political statement, Bob Dylan Chimes of Freedom style. The words are really open-ended here. So overall, very glad to hear that ABBA are finally back. Very rich sound on a lot of these tracks. Don't Shut Me Down will certainly last the test of time, and possibly some of the others. There are certainly things I would have done here, taken out the orchestration on some of the songs, really, brought in a bit more happiness, a bit, some that are more hits in the vein of Mamma Mia or Waterloo sounding here. But certainly, a very good reunion album, and it would be exciting to hear if they continue to write new stuff and perform together. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.